arrogant Kyiv, Ukraine that is, tells the West that negotiations with Russia are tantamount to surrender. The West's attempts to push Ukraine to negotiate with Moscow are strange considering that now negotiations would be tantamount to surrender, Mikhailo Podolyak, advisor to Ukrainian President Zelinsky, said. Of course, the advisor forgets that the victories for which he gloats are due to the mercenary and material package paid by the West, which is one step before freezing, financially and literally, and that perhaps he will not be able to continue supporting them for much longer, but tries to blackmail for more. When you have the initiative on the battlefield, it's a little strange to receive proposals like this. You can't do everything through the military anyway. You negotiate, Podolyak said in an interview with Agency France Presse from his office in the presidency. This means that the country that is fighting back, that is regaining its territory, must give way to the country that is losing, he said. American media recently reported that some high-ranking officials have begun encouraging Ukraine to consider talks with Russia, which Zelensky refuses unless Russian forces completely withdraw from Ukraine's soil first. Military victory is probably not, in the strict sense of the term, achievable by military means, estimated on November 9 the head of the General Staff of the U.S. National Defense, General Mark Milley, estimating that there is a window of opportunity for negotiations. According to Podolyak, Moscow has not made any direct proposal to Kiev for talks, preferring to carry it through mediators and even talking about the possibility of a ceasefire. An idea that makes no sense to Kiev, which sees the proposal as a maneuver by Russia to create a lull in the fighting that will allow it to regroup and launch a new offensive. Russia does not want negotiations. Russia is conducting a communication campaign which it calls negotiations, assured Podolyak, who forgets that the Russian side now shows that everything revolves around the war conflicts, while every mistake is corrected, and this is perhaps something that the Americans see but not in Ukraine. No respite. He just wants to buy time. In the meantime, it will train reservists, find additional weapons, and reinforce its position, he warns. That's Russia, of course, he's referring to Russia. Because despite his heavy military defeats, Russian President Vladimir Putin still believes that he can destroy Ukraine. That's his obsession, and negotiations with him make no sense, Podolyak argued. The West is not putting pressure on Ukraine, he stressed, but expressed great regret that our partners still believe that it is still possible to return to the pre-war era when Russia was a reliable partner. After the mass retreat of the Russians from the province of Kyiv in March, and then from the province of Kharkov in September, the liberation in November of Kherson, of course the Russian movements are not yet complete, and no one knows what follows the Russian evacuation, of the only capital province in the Russian army had captured since the beginning of the intervention marks a fundamental shift, according to Podolyak. Ukraine cannot allow any respite in its counterattack despite the arrival of cold and snow that worsen the situation on the field. Today, every small respite only increases the losses that Ukraine is suffering, Zelensky advisor complained, as Moscow has been bombing the country's energy infrastructures for weeks, plunging millions of households into darkness. It's over 50% of the people that have no energy in Ukraine, 50% of Ukraine. To be afraid of Ukraine? The provinces of Zaporizhia South and Lugansk East are now the key directions for the army, assessed Podolyak, who declined to comment on the possibility of a military operation to retake the Crimea Peninsula. In this context, the Ukrainian authorities hope for an increase in Western arms deliveries. This is very important, especially in winter, he said. According to Podolyak, Ukraine needs another 150 to 200 tanks, about 300 armored vehicles, about 100 artillery systems, 50 to 70 multiple rocket launchers, mainly the American HIMARS, of which Kyiv already has several, as well as 10 to 15 anti-aircraft defense systems to close the sky, he said. He also mentioned the American ATM-CMS missiles, which have a range of 300 kilometers, while that of the missiles that Ukraine now has do not exceed 80 kilometers. According to Podolyak, These missiles will bring the end of the war, allowing Ukraine to destroy large depots of Russian army located deep in the regions, which it cannot currently reach with its weapons. Kyiv has no need to attack military targets inside Russia, Podolyak said. The war will end when we regain control of our borders and when Russia fears Ukraine. Well, those high heels over there must have gotten lost in the end. In addition to all his money they received, along with a washed out package, their minds have been clouded and they're rushing to finish this once and for all, because that's where the thing goes away. A little later than we expected, but there it goes for sure. And before they get there and are humiliated together with the sleepers in the crazy cage NATO, he tells you to get together with the Greeks before everything goes wrong. But the great pianist does not understand this. Apparently he's still missing a few tens of millions of mentally ill high heels. This is from the Pelaskian. Of course, it's cynical at the end. I've translated this story from a Greek article. Please leave your comments. Thank you for your support. Kindly support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.